This documentary will reveal the true face of betrayal, hidden behind years of lies, showcasing how Mohammad Mosaddegh betrayed both the Iranian people and the Shah. Join us as we uncover the reality, obscured by decades of deception. Mohammad Mosaddegh was an Iranian politician during the Qajar and Pahlavi periods. He was born on May 19, 1879, in Tehran. His father, Mirza Hidayatollah, was a descendant of Mirza Kazem Ashtiani, a minister during Fath Ali Shah's reign. Mosaddegh's mother, Malek Taj Khanum Najmo Sultaneh, was a descendant of Abbas Mirza, the crown prince of Fath Ali Shah. Mosaddegh married the daughter of Sayyid Zainul Abidin, Imam Jom'eh, a granddaughter of Nasiruddin Shah. His family were large landowners, but many of their lands were given to farmers due to land reforms. Mosaddegh began his education at age 5 and went to France in 1908 to study finance. After 2 years, he moved to Switzerland to study law, earning a doctorate with a thesis on wills in Islamic law. He also became a Swiss citizen and obtained a license to practice law. Mosaddegh held various positions from the Qajar to the Pahlavi periods, including prime minister under Mohammad Reza Shah. He, along with Kashani, worked to nationalize Iran's oil industry. However, after a failed coup attempt to overthrow Pahlavi's constitutional monarchy on August 19, 1953, he was exiled to Ahmadabad, where he died at age 87 on March 5, 1967. In this documentary, we are going to cover two aspects of Mossaddegh's life: his Swiss citizenship and his attempts to overthrow the constitutional monarchy in Iran, and his actions against the rule of law. A significant aspect of Mossaddegh's studies in Switzerland influenced his political career. According to Swiss law, only Swiss citizens or residents can obtain a law practice license after graduating. Mossaddegh's memoirs indicate that gaining Swiss citizenship required 3 years of residence. When he graduated with his law degree, he had not yet met this requirement. However, he was already working as a legal trainee in Swiss courts before earning his doctorate, which suggests he obtained Swiss citizenship before completing his doctorate. Let's see how Mosaddegh described obtaining his Swiss citizenship.
During my stay, I trained every morning and worked on translating my thesis with a fellow student in the afternoons. My internship lasted 6 months, but I worked 9 months at the law office. I participated in a trial at the highest court in Neuchâtel and received my law license, conditional on acquiring Swiss citizenship. Swiss citizenship did not require renouncing my original nationality. Applicants needed 3 years of residency and a clean record. I obtained a certificate from Neuchâtel police, submitted it with my application to the Swiss central government, and it was approved.
Despite this, Mosaddegh knew that holding foreign citizenship was against Iranian civil law. According to Iranian law, Articles 988 and 989, any Iranian who acquired foreign citizenship without following legal procedures would be barred from holding government positions, such as a minister or legislator. Therefore, Mossaddegh's roles as a member of parliament and as a prime minister were technically illegal. This itself would raise questions about the legitimacy of his decisions and actions during his tenure. On August 16, 1953, in Tehran, there was a plan to establish a republic governing system, which indeed marked the beginning of the Islamic Republic. The actors, instigators, and members of the National Front were led and directed by Mohammad Mosaddegh. These same people, 26 years later, under the apparent guidance of Ruhollah Khomeini, and indeed, driven by popular terrorist elements and supported by both the East and the West, engaged in various conspiracies to establish the Islamic Republic. The goal of the National Front, since its founding by Mosaddegh Qajar, was to undermine the law, eliminate the Shah's authority, overthrow the constitutional monarchy in Iran, and disrupt the essence of state and government concepts to establish a republic. In reality, the coup on August 16, 1953, was a failed project to overthrow Iran's constitutional monarchy, designed and led by Mosaddegh, which ended in failure. However, this project still struggles to live in various forms. All political forces turned their back on Mohammad Mosaddegh when he conspired against Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. No party or group, except the Communist Tudeh Party, supported Mosaddegh. When he tried to impose a republic on Iranians with Soviet force, his political life end was sealed. The betrayal of Iran by Mosaddegh is a lesson that all Iranians must always learn accurately and in detail to prevent its repetition by staying vigilant in similar current affairs. Mohammad Mosaddegh had a very detailed plan to overthrow Iran's constitutional monarchy and establish a republic with himself as its president. The first step was to eliminate the separation and independence of the legislative, executive, and judiciary branches, effectively breaking the constitutional law. On August 3, 1952, Mosaddegh obtained powers to become both the judiciary and the executive branches. On October 23, 1952, Mosaddegh dissolved the Senate. As a result, he removed the Senate, which was established in the constitutional law to review and approve laws. For Mosaddegh, the National Assembly was the biggest obstacle to ruling alone. To achieve his goal of closing the National Assembly, he planned another trick. This so-called referendum was held in two stages. The first stage on August 3, 1953, in Tehran and its surroundings, and the second stage on August 10, 1953, in urban areas across the country. If there were any doubts among the people in other cities, the results of the first stage on August 3rd showed what the outcome would be. In this referendum, people had to choose between two frightening options. The voting question was, do you not accept the dissolution of the 17th Parliament, or do you want to stand against criticism of the government for expressing opposing views? The yes and no votes were cast in separate boxes. The place of voting for yes and the place of voting for no were different. Furthermore, the ballots required voters to write their full details. Therefore, most people preferred not to make any choices, which led the election resulted to the favor of Mosaddegh. After this referendum, Mosaddegh asked Mohammad Reza Shah to dissolve the parliament, and when the Shah took no action, the Prime Minister himself announced on August 16th that the 17th Parliament was dissolved. A few days earlier, on August 14, 1953, Mohammad Mosaddegh was informed by Nureddin Kianuri, the leader of the Tudeh Party, that the Shah had signed an order to dismiss Mosaddegh as the Prime Minister. Mosaddegh, in collaboration with Brigadier General Taghi Riahi, prepared a detailed plan for what to do when the dismissal order was presented to him. First, instead of accepting his dismissal, Mosaddegh was to claim that the Shah's army had staged a coup. Second, Mosaddegh was to order the arrest of senior officers of the Imperial Guard, followed by redistributing other officers and soldiers to different barracks. Third, the guards protecting the Shah and his family were to be arrested, and the Shah was to be confined to the palace. Fourth, a large demonstration was to be held in Baharistan Square, where speakers from the National Front, the Pan-Iranist Party, and the Tudeh Party would inform the public about the end of the constitutional monarchy and the establishment of a republic governing system. In the early hours of August 16, 1953, Colonel Nasiri, delivered the Shah's dismissal order to Mosaddegh and took a receipt from him. Mosaddegh then sent Nasiri to General Riyahi, the army chief of staff, who arrested Nasiri and his companions. That night, Mosaddegh and Riyahi disarmed and disbanded the imperial guard, arrested and imprisoned the guard officers, and sent the guard soldiers to Bagh Shah and other barracks. They also sealed the royal palaces. So far, everything proceeded according to their plan. However, Mosaddegh had not anticipated that the Shah, who was in Ramsar at the time, would flee to Baghdad with his wife in a single-engine plane after learning about the situation in Tehran. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Mosaddegh convened his first cabinet meeting at his house. During this meeting, they decided on the structure of the Mossaddegh's government. Additionally, Mosaddegh and his cabinet decided to broadcast an announcement on Tehran radio at 7 in the morning. Mosaddegh also declared that from 1 o'clock in the morning on August 16th, all the constitutional duties of the Shah were now his own. He announced that the constitutional monarchy was no longer valid and ordered that everywhere the word Shah appeared, it should be replaced with Iran. He also instructed the Army General Staff to issue a statement changing the morning and evening prayers, removing the Shah's name and replacing it with Iran. In the cabinet meeting, it was decided to hold a demonstration in Baharistan Square that afternoon, organized by the Tudeh Party, the National Front, the Iran Party, the Third Force, and the Pan-Iranist Party. The speakers were to introduce the new Mosaddegh government and declare the end of the constitutional monarchy. Mosaddegh personally ordered Sanjabi to topple the statues of Reza Shah and Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi from Baharistan Square and other locations. The first announcement of the Mosaddegh government was a big lie. At 7 in the morning, Bashir Farahmand, the head of the General Directorate of Public Relations, read the government statement twice over Iran radio, claiming that a coup by the Imperial Guard had occurred at 1 in the morning on August 16th, but had been thwarted by 4 in the morning. Meanwhile, Hossein Fatemi, the foreign minister of the Mosaddegh government, sent a telegram to the Iranian ambassador in Baghdad.
There is no need for the embassy to contact anyone who fled without informing the government after a failed military coup attempt.
Fatemi also summoned all domestic and foreign journalists, and as the foreign minister and government spokesman, gave them the government statement and ordered it to be broadcast worldwide. Shortly after noon, the Tudeh Party, the National Front, and the Pan-Iranists, carrying red flags with hammers and sickles, shouting communist slogans, marched through the streets of Tehran towards Baharistan Square. The capital's residents were terrified, seeing with their own eyes that the Soviets were seemingly taking control of Iran. In Baharistan Square, figures like Shagan and Sanjabi, who would overthrow the constitutional monarchy in 1979, proclaimed the republic. In the meantime, the National Front and the Tudeh Party used a crane they had brought earlier to topple the statue of Reza Shah the Great in Baharistan Square. On August 17th and 18th, they continued to pull down statues of the two Pahlavi kings from Sepah Square, February 24th Square, the Railway Square, the City Park, and other places in Tehran. On August 19, 1953, from 6 in the morning, groups of people poured into the streets, and the people's uprising against the Mossaddegh's government began. In this uprising, all social classes participated: workers, tradesmen, farmers, students, soldiers, police, the Imperial Guard, and women. Patriotic citizens seized the radio station, then stormed key city centers and government offices, taking over one by one. When the radio station was secured, the national anthem was played, and the people announced their victory. Mosaddegh fled by jumping over the wall of his house to his neighbor's home. Mosaddegh was captured and imprisoned after hiding for a few days. Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi returned to Iran and ordered a court to be formed to try Mosaddegh for treason. Mossaddegh's trial, along with that of Brigadier General Taqi Riyahi, lasted from November 3, 1953 to December 22, 1953. The prosecutor, demanded the death penalty for Mosaddegh for his betrayal and subversion of the constitutional monarchy. The charges against him, the primary defendant, were as follows. First, ordering the arrest of Colonel Nematollah Nasiri, the Imperial Guard commander carrying the dismissal order. Second, unlawfully detaining official and unofficial personnel. Third, disarming the Imperial Guard protecting the Shah and the royal palaces. Fourth, sealing the royal palaces and removing the custodians and guards from the royal properties. Fifth, sending telegrams to Iranian ambassadors abroad, instructing them not to contact the Shah. Sixth, ordering the removal of the Shah's name from morning and evening prayers in military barracks. Seventh, using state propaganda to organize rallies to insult the constitutional monarchy and the constitutional regime and broadcasting the rally events on the radio. Eighth, ordering the removal and destruction of statues of Reza Shah the Great and Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi to encourage subversive elements to rise against the constitutional monarchy. Ninth, dissolving the National Assembly. 10th, placing members of the royal family under surveillance. 11th, unlawfully arresting General Zahedi, the appointed prime minister, and offering a reward for his capture. 12th, removing the national anthem from Tehran radio's program. 13th, attempting to form a regency council through a referendum. On Monday, December 21, 1953, before the court convened, a letter from the royal court was read aloud. In this letter, His Imperial Majesty the Shah stated,
"By royal decree, in recognition of Dr. Mohammad Mosaddegh's services during his first year as Prime Minister in nationalizing the oil industry, a demand of the Iranian people and supported by His Majesty, I have decided to pardon him for what has transpired. Minister of the Royal Court, Hossein Allah."
The presiding judge, after reading the letter from the royal court, said,
Of course, His Majesty has waived his personal rights.
Based on this royal pardon, although Mohammad Mosaddegh was found guilty of all 13 charges against him, he was only sentenced to dismissal from service and house arrest. Brigadier General Taqi Riahi was also sentenced to 2 years in prison and expelled from the Imperial Army. The court's verdict noted, considering the specific circumstances of the defendant being Dr. Mohammad Mosaddegh, the court has found the aforementioned mitigating factors, and considering Article 46 of the General Penal Code, due to the defendant's age exceeding 60 years, sentences him to 3 years of solitary confinement. The reading of the verdict began at 9:25 and continued until 10:35. However, the story did not end there. Supporters of Mossaddegh's coup fled to Europe and the United States, using Soviet funds to launch an opposition movement against the Shah and the Iranian constitutional monarchy. The Confederation of Iranian Students Abroad recruited young Iranians who had been sent abroad on government scholarships at the expense of the Iranian people. Many of these students returned to Iran after their studies, yet as sworn enemies of the country and its people. Instead of contributing to the modernization and development of Iran, these students, influenced by Mehdi Bazargan's ideas, infiltrated the executive branch, particularly the ministries, calling it walking the corridors of power to prepare the ground for overthrowing the constitutional monarchy. Some of these student confederation members went to Yasser Arafat, the world's notorious terrorist, to receive training in assassination, kidnapping, terror, theft, bank robbery, and guerrilla warfare. Members of the Student Confederation then sought out Khomeini in Najaf, declared him as their leader, and asked him to guide their efforts against the Shah and the Iranian nation. 4 days after the failure of the infamous June 5, 1963 event, which is a shameful day in Iran's history, orchestrated by Khomeini, the National Front, and the Freedom Movement to overthrow the constitutional monarchy and prevent land reforms and the abolition of the landlord-tenant system, Mohammad Mosaddegh sent a letter to the Confederation of Iranian Students, urging them to take bold steps to continue his path of overthrowing Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi and the constitutional government, coordinating with Khomeini's supporters. On June 25, 1966, the secretaries of the Confederation of Iranian Students met with Khomeini in Iraq. Khomeini said,
"Students must continue their struggle unitedly, never forget the oppressed people of Iran and their plight. The country's future is in the hands of the youth, and they must not neglect its protection. We clergy are, with you students on this path, and will cooperate with you based on Islamic principles."
In September 1967, Mustafa Khomeini wrote a letter to the Confederation outlining future cooperation between the clergy and the Confederation. The second meeting between the Confederation's representatives and Ayatollah Khomeini took place in September 1969. Mahmoud Rafi and Majid Zarbakhsh, who had gone to Jordan to attend the 5th Congress of the Palestinian Students' Union, visited Khomeini in Najaf on their return trip and discussed collaboration between the Confederation of Iranian Students Abroad and the clergy. Khomeini said that the Confederation should support the clergy and the Palestinian people's struggle. One of the most horrifying actions of Mossadegh's supporters, in cooperation with Khomeini's supporters, the Confederation of Iranian Students Abroad, and clerics within the country, was the burning of 28 cinemas across the nation on the anniversary of the glorious August 19, 1953 uprising. On August 19, 1978, under Khomeini's orders and with airplane fuel provided by him, the Rex Cinema in Abadan was set on fire, burning over 600 Iranians alive. On February 11, 1979, precisely on the anniversary of the signing of the Constitution, marking the victory of constitutionalism over absolutism, Khomeini and his allies in the National Front and the Freedom Movement, who were essentially the roots of the Mojahedin, Tudeh Party, and various terrorist groups, some of which later rebranded as the Reformist faction, seized power in Iran. Mehdi Bazargan was the prime minister. Brigadier General Taki Riahi was the Minister of Defense, and after some time, Mostafa Chamran took on this role. Ebrahim Yazdi was the Deputy Prime Minister for Revolutionary Affairs. Nasser Minachi was the Minister of National Guidance. Karim Sanjabi was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Asadullah Mobasheri was the Minister of Post and Telegraph. Dariush Forouhar was the Minister of Labor. Ahmad Sadr Haj Sayed Javadi was the Minister of Justice. Izzatullah Sahabi was the head of the Planning and Budget Organization. Sadegh Tabatabai was the Deputy for Public Relations. Hassan Habibi was the Minister of Culture and Higher Education. Ahmad Madani was the Minister of National Defense. Ali Akbar Moinfar was the Minister of Oil. Hashem Sabagian was the Minister of Interior, and so on. This malicious group honored Mohammad Mosaddegh and continued his path of what they saw as the destruction of Iran and the overthrow of the constitutional monarchy by renaming Pahlavi Street in Tehran to Mosaddegh Street. In 1979, they celebrated the 100th birthday of Mosaddegh. These traitors, as referred to by the author, printed a commemorative stamp and forgot that they had lied to the people of Iran for 50 years about Mossadegh's birth year being 1882 instead of the true date of 1879, in order to hide the illegality of his representation and prime ministership since he was over 70 years old. The result of what Mohammad Mosaddegh and his supporters did is seen in Iran today, a country once green and prosperous, rich in resources, both above and below ground, that was ruined by their policies. The impact of Mossadegh's policies can be seen today in countries like Venezuela under Hugo Chavez, Cuba under Fidel Castro, Albania under Enver Hoxha, or the Soviet Union under Stalin. All these countries have been devastated. Today, the people of Iran have seen through the lies of Mosaddegh and his followers. No one is deceived by their slogans and tricks anymore. The people of Iran have cried out, Reza Shah, may your soul be blessed, because they recognize that Reza Shah, the founder of the Pahlavi dynasty, rescued Iran from the grip of the Qajar dynasty, a country then impoverished, diseased and hungry, and transformed it into a modern, progressive nation with a bright future. The Pahlavi's kings demonstrated that they could bring a prosperous and golden future to Iran, whereas the name of Mohammad Mosaddegh is synonymous with political, economical, and social bankruptcy. The honored name of the Pahlavi will remain associated with stability, security, prosperity, equality, comfort, and a bright future. Today, Iranians recognize His Majesty Reza Pahlavi, the Crown Prince of Iran, as their true leader and real patriot to overthrow the tyranny of the brutal Islamic regime that occupied their country since 1979.